right. Looks like we're live, and I am going through my cell phone. I tried to go live through the Wi-Fi here, and it seems pretty weak today. And so we're going to start out. I don't have any viewers right now because this is an impromptu live video feed, and we are starting my time. It's about 3 o'clock, 3:10 in the AM. And so we may get a whole different audience than we do when I go at 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night. So we will go ahead and start up the gear. Tell you what it is. We've got Cognac and Cuban cigars from Henri and Victoria. We've got the Nacet that I keep using. Today is 377, use number 377. And this is their triple milled formulation. They had kind of an old school formulation for quite some time. It's a Canadian maker, I believe. And that was decent, but it wasn't great. But this stuff is really nice. Last time I used it, unfortunately, it's been a while. So I'm looking forward to using it. I am going to be using the Saponificio Varesino Badger brush. They're a Manchurian Badger that they have, high density, and then the Charcoal Goods Everyday razor. It's a mild razor. I just picked it out. I was actually trying to find my Carve Christopher Bradley razor for right now, but I couldn't, and that's got me a little concerned. I was going to use a different base plate than I did the other day, and it's not where I thought it would be. I'm sure it'll turn up somewhere, but let's load up the blade. I'm going to show you. Last night we had a good number of you subscribers show up. Of course, it took a little while for people to get the notification. Here's my Nacet blade. There's the Sharpie dot right there, and there's the faint echo of two other dots, and that's the signature. And then you've got the bend in it right near there that you can kind of see a little bit of. That's kind of my identifying marks there. I have an etcher on order, and so I'm going to be able to etch this blade and have a permanent mark on it instead of relying on the Sharpie marks, which, as we can see, are kind of starting to fade. I'm going to point the Sharpie marks toward the handle, which is kind of what I've been doing the whole life of this blade. Looks like we've got one viewer. Pretty cool. Unless that one viewer is me. I'm not sure how YouTube counts that. And then everything looks pretty good. And I'm going to do an against the grain pass like this. On my trouble spot, and so I'm wondering if a mild razor might be able to make that pass work well. All right, I've loaded up my 40 milliliter jigger with water. Just to recap, we've got Cognac and Cuban cigars as the soap, Saponificio Badger, Charcoal Goods Everyday, and the Nacet as my razor. We do have the bowl. Let me get my face wet. 24 hours worth of growth here, maybe a few hours more than that. I think when I shaved yesterday, it was like 11 o'clock. So maybe 4 hours more than what I used, what I shaved with yesterday. And it is, I don't know if I'm going to get any sleep tonight. I got some work to do, a lot of work that is due. So that is what it is. So I wanted to kind of get my shave in before I got too tired and decided just to not do it. I've used this one a couple of times, and it is a nice soap base. First time I got this, it was, it said triple milled. It's a tallow base. I think their other one was vegan, and I was very happy to get the tallow base, but this is the first time I saw something that looked like a crope, but they said it was triple milled. And at first I thought, well, that's just a marketing term they're using. But then I looked it up online, and the manufacturing process for making a triple milled soap doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's a hard packed puck like Tabac or Fine Accoutrements Classic pucks or Mitchell's Wool Fat or something like that. It can be like this. So I think that's the case. Let's load up. This has been a while. It's actually shrinking away. Let's say 40 seconds, just so that we make sure we get enough soap. Shake a lot of the water out. Nice, comfy, big Badger. And what did we say? 30 seconds. Okay, we're starting at, there's the timer. We'll start when 540 rolls around right there. And I'll watch it. So at the 10 seconds on the next minute, we'll reevaluate, and that'll be 30 seconds. I'm going to go to 20 seconds on the next minute, so that'll be 40. Because what's coming off the soap right now is okay, but I'd like for it to be maybe a little bit thicker just to be sure. I did soak this Badger brush prior to the shave for several minutes. Yeah, I think we've got plenty. I'm sorry, I know the video is not of great quality when I'm using this Chromebook, but that's the only way I can go live for now. And I was trying to do a fast shave, and so I didn't go get my webcam that I think has better resolution. And we'll go ahead and start working this up. You know, I may get very few viewers at all, because after all, this is most people in the eastern United States, even central, it's going to be 2 a.m. Mountain time, it'll be 1 a.m. So maybe there's somebody on the Pacific that's spending a late night out there. But then if we go to London time, it is, I think, about 8:15 in the morning. But see, that's when people need to be at work. Tito Ceccherini, Italy. All right. I'm so sorry. I probably butchered your name. But hey, we're using an Italian brush today. Oh man, look at all this lather, and I haven't even added any water yet. I'm probably going to be overflowing with lather. 40 seconds of loading is probably going to be way too much. Very cool that we're reaching out to Italy. I'm using a Canadian soap with an Italian brush. And the Gillette Nacet blade, I don't know if they're made in St. Petersburg or, you know, which of those factories that make all those Gillette brushes. And we're kind of, we're getting close. Now, Tito, since you're from Italy, I once was speaking to someone from Italy, and they were saying that boar brushes are just super popular over there. Is that, you find that to be true from your experience? And if so, do you have any, or do you use any kind of shortcut methods to break them in? There's that video of the Italian barber where people translated how he breaks in a bore brush. He puts it in cool water and then rubs it on a towel and does that for a few days or something, like a long soak, you know. And I think in the translation, we Americans have translated that as cold water, as in refrigerated water. And so a lot of people have taken to keeping their brushes in the refrigerator. And I think it seems to be a mistranslation. Somebody jumped in and said, just because it says cool water, that just means tap water, you know, like from the, just from the tap instead of, from the faucet instead of actual literal cold water from the fridge. All right, I think this looks pretty good. Get my face wet again. Just kind of a quick impromptu video just for fun. I've got to figure out, as tomorrow is the day one of the Lather games. And the challenge is to shave outside, shave in public. Oh man, this lather's terrific. It's pretty thick already. You can see how it's easily removed from the goatee. You know what I can do? This, look at how so much lather this has. I'm going to take all of this lather kind of off my face. I'm even going to just shoot that down the drain. It's a little hard to get off my hands. I'm going to add a little bit more water to the brush here. And it'll just beef right up because we got so much on the brush. So let's see, Italy is probably a couple hours ahead of the UK. So maybe Italy is +7 from the eastern United States. And again, we've got a build up. And look at the curvature there and the valleys and ripples, and you can tell the kind of the viscosity of your lather. And this one definitely can use a little bit more water. Ah, okay. Gotcha. I was in England during the early 90s. I got to go and take a trip, a little recreational trip to Germany, Switzerland, and that kind of stuff. I really wish I would have taken the time to go to Italy as well. And this lather feels great here. I could definitely push more water into it if I want. If you don't want to keep adding water to the lather, like I really want to add it here, but I'm already kind of doing so much. One hazard if you do use a lather that's too dry is that it doesn't really, like look how much structure that peak has right there. It's hanging out on its own, all sticking out like that. If your lather has too much dryness to it, then I sometimes will get a scrapey feeling on my face. And so what you can do to offset that is just give it more time on your face. If you don't want to add more water, give it more time so that it kind of bonds with your face a little bit. I've also sprayed on my face with a little water sprayer or mister. That looks pretty good. Man, 40 seconds of loading was way too much. Matter of fact, what I'm going to do is add some water to the bowl here. Kind of mix it in. I've got just tons of lather here. So this is a concentrated lather. All right, we'll let that wait for the second pass. All right, I got a feeling we're going to get a little bit of tugginess. This is use number 377 on this blade. Tito says, I tend to find it difficult to hydrate as much. Yeah. Okay. I understand. Slicker, you feel like you get it more slick when you are, ooh, this is comfy. And I can see it's removing hair. This might be a really good razor to use at this age of this blade. Wow. Yeah, Tito, I also, man, I'm glad that my videos have been of help, man. But what you just said a second ago, it's difficult to hydrate it properly when you're face lathering, and that's totally true. I find that often the good lather that's just really well hydrated, that's the stuff that flies off, when I'm adding water, and that's one of the main reasons I bowl lather. But yeah, just keep playing around with it. All right, there. I think that's a great first pass. Now we're going to switch, and since I've got such concentrated lather here, I'm going to leave my face very wet, except for my goatee. And that'll help to thin down the lather a little bit more, in addition to the water that I just put in my bowl. Michael Lee Alejos, if I guess the pronunciation right. It looks kind of Spanish. Hello from Texas. You are up early in the morning or late at night, like me. Oh yeah, there we go. This lather. Oh man, this is much more creamy. Woof, this is slick stuff here. So now we'll switch to cross grain. That first pass was not really tuggy at all. Just lightly tuggy. But not uncomfortable at all, I guess is what I was aiming to say. Light touch as usual, holding that razor lightly. Then I can take my goatee lather and hit this area again. Really curious how this mild razor is going to go against the grain. Couldn't find my carve razor. I was going to use it today, but and so I'm a little worried. Okay. Well, just keep on working on it, working at it, maybe load a little bit more soap, that kind of thing. You can definitely get there. And rinse. Have my towel fall down. Correct that. But yeah, I've got tons of slickness here. Elastic lather. I mean, that's just stuff. That stuff is just great. One thing you could do, I don't know how long are you guys loading for when you load from the tub? When you're trying to bowl lather and you're wondering about, you're not getting enough slickness. You know about how long you're loading for? I'm going to do another cross grain. So this will be pass 3. This is very comfortable here. This is my last shave before the lather games. I've got a lot of my schedule already mapped out, but not everything. I think I'm going to be using my lunch break later today on the 1st to finalize things. If you don't mind using the same maker a few times during the month, it's actually very easy to put together your schedule. Okay, 30 seconds up to over a minute. Gotcha. Now, I often find that with Holy Cow or with the silk tallow from Chiseled Face, there are formulations that might take a minute of loading. But most of the time, 30 seconds is plenty. Exactly, Tito. That's right. If you do get lots of soap, then you have to add more water. You know, there is that. You could try mixing for a little bit longer, and then you just make sure that you have a nice consistent mixture. You know, that's something else. All right, so that's the third pass down. Let's take some extra lather here and do this. Hey, I'm not getting a hint of pulling right here, so this against the grain pass right here may be pretty constructive. So we'll do a neck only now. Also, one of the things, if you think you might be loading too much soap, you can measure it out. Like take a 1/4 teaspoon measure. I keep one handy. And if you have a crope, obviously, if it's a hard puck, then you can't do that. But, you know, measure out a 1/4 teaspoon. It's a good amount to start with. And then press that into the bottom of your lather bowl and just start adding water until everything looks right, you know. Michael says, I've tried a blade marathon. Yeah, okay. Oh, Gillette Tech for 1 month with a Nacet. Yep. Well, the Tech is really an awesome razor. And that's very cool. So, Michael, that looks like you got good technique as well to make it go for that long. Isn't it great to know that if you need to make a blade go that long, then that's there for you? Pretty cool. And to do it with a Tech is not a lot of people do that. Some people have to migrate to more aggressive razors before they would get to a month of uses. All right. Well, I'm going to rinse one more time. And then I'm going to do the against the grain pass. We'll just see how comfy that is with this charcoal goods every day. If I can't find a razor to have a reasonably comfy touch up here, then I think I'll have to flip the blade and it'll be time for the new era to begin with the Nacet. I don't want to be, my point is that this blade, by pushing it so many times, I will, but it'll still give a reasonably comfortable shave. If I'm sitting there grunting it out and enduring pain, that's not comparable. That's not helpful to anybody, because then people could just say, well, I don't want to do that, you know. All right, here we go. Against the grain, a little bit of skin stretching. Oh, now that's pretty comfy. That's not bad. Cross grain now. If I keep doing that same stroke like this, that's cross grain by the time I get over here. Now let's just go and see if that, not a lot of tenderness or anything like that. No bleeding. We might have a winner here, folks. I wish there was a way I could announce. I'm afraid with doing these impromptu shaves, I'm not able to give word out in advance, but I guess that's just the way it goes. Michael also says about 20 seconds. Okay. Don't really load heavy because I always end up with too much soap left over. Isn't that the truth? Often 20 seconds really is tons of soap. Yeah. Okay. Now that's true. See, wetness with the brush. That is something that can really play into it. Of course, if you come into the soap with loading, and I've actually had it be if you have a soft soap and your brush is too wet, I think that gets in the way of you being able to gather soap up from the layer of soap on the soap tub. And so I definitely had that happen in austere August a couple of years ago. I was using chiseled face, midnight stag, and I had a boar brush. It was very wet. I was trying the Marco method, which is lots of water in your brush, lightly rubbing it over the soap. And no matter how long I loaded, because of all that wetness in the brush, it was almost keeping those tips from digging into the soap somehow. I don't know how, but it just wasn't effective. And then I shook out more of the water, and then it started grabbing the soap. So yeah, vary the amount of soap in your brush. That can really help you. Okay. Okay, gotcha. Now, DR Harris, those hard soaps, I love those. Those are good. TOBS hard soaps are not bad. I just used the Leah cream for the first time, maybe a week or two ago, and I really enjoyed that as a cream. I think that's a very good performing cream, so I bet their hard soaps are good as well. And Meisner, I tried a couple of their hard soaps recently, and the performance wasn't all that great. I thought some of their scents were pretty neat. But it does look like at least you're not working with some real dud soaps. Those are all reasonable soaps, especially probably the DR Harris and the Leah. And so that's cool. Okay, so if you're using hard soaps, then you can, I would still come at it with a lightly wet brush. You could do a soaking wet brush if you wanted to try that. But what I would do is change a small variable each time. Come at it with a lightly wet brush and just work at it, because I used to soak any of the hard soaps that I used to have. But now I've found out that most of those hard soaps don't even need the soaking at all. And so you can do that. Okay. See, the Leah, the cream that I used was very inexpensive, and I was very happy. The performance ratio to the price is very nice. And so I'm not surprised to hear you say that the hard soap is very similar. You get a great value for a good performing product. Yeah. Yeah. I occasionally order from Connaught Shaving over in the UK, and I will likely, maybe I'll have to put in a hard soap of Leah on that order sometime. So very cool. But if you come at your hard soaps with just a lightly wet brush, and maybe start with 30 seconds or something like that, lightly wet, 30 seconds, and see what happens. And then if you don't feel like it's good for you, and of course, if you come at it with a lightly wet brush, you will have to be adding water to your bowl as you go. And I find that sometimes a hard soap, it's not uncommon to have to add maybe 4 teaspoons, which would equivalently be about 20 milliliters of water. So don't be surprised if you have to add that much water if you're using a nice hard soap. And then from there, if that's not satisfactory, change something small each time, like add 20 seconds to your load time, but keep everything else as consistent as possible, and change something each time to be able to kind of get where you want to go. Another thing you can do is just mix for a little bit longer than you think. Sometimes I've had great success with that. Then, of course, you could start changing how much water you leave in your brush. You could leave more water in your brush when you go to load. You could back off, shake more of it out, that kind of thing. And if you stick with the one soap, I don't know if you like to rotate, But if you're really interested in fine tuning your skills with your soap, stick with the one soap consistently until you do it like 2 weeks in a row, and see if that consistency can help you better spot, the issues. And pay attention to your lather as you're working. Pull it up, kind of half of it, pull up like that, and look at what it does. See, look at how that collapses. And then it's kind of fluid like that. See how does, when you pull it up into a peak, how does gravity affect it? Like, gravity is definitely affecting that peak right there. Now, however, look, it's not so slick. It's not so wet that it's falling down my brush. Well, I'm glad to be of help. I hope that does help you. Another thing is to add more water than you think, just for grins. Add so much water that it's dripping off your face. Add so much water that it won't stay on the brush, and see how much water that takes, how it looks, see how that performs. And then if you're unhappy with that, start backing off. And so that's something else to try. All right. Well, my face feels great. I have, I've rinsed, but this soap is helping my skin. It's not drying out my skin. So that's encouraging. And I've got a nice, acceptable, close cut here. So I'm happy with that. Budges shaves. Do you mean budget shaves, like inexpensive things? Is that what you mean, Michael? Like the synthetic Yaki brush, the Maggard V3A, those are all inexpensive options. And the Vashkod's fairly inexpensive, I think. Is that what you mean by, are you just wanting to address some of the cheaper shaving products? But just in case that's what you're saying, yeah. The Yaki synthetics, see, those same knots in the Yaki synthetics, those are the same knots that people are selling and putting in much more expensive handles. They really are. The black and white tuxedo, especially that Plaisson type, which was kind of the beige with the brown tips. Those are the same exact synthetic knots that are going in other more expensive handles. And so I think there's nothing wrong at all with going with some of those Yaki brushes. And even some of the Badgers are pretty decent. I've got a Yaki silver tip, I think is pretty good. I did get a DS Cosmetics or a Yaki Super Badger that was very prickly. It looked like the tips had been clipped, and that's bad for your prickliness. And so I wouldn't recommend the Super Badger from Yaki. But pardon me. But the 2-band Badger from Yaki, I'm very happy with, and the silver tip, I think, are great brushes for the price. Sterling soaps are terrific, and Tabac and Perazzo. Oh yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Now, Michael, you're not in Italy like Tito is. And so Perazzo is not as cheap for you unless you get it at somewhere like TJ Maxx or something, Marshall's. Yeah. You know what? Boar brushes are great to be cheap and not break the bank, and you can still have a good collection of them. And Sterling, man, it's hard to beat Sterling in terms of price and value, because that beef tallow base is just so good. And likewise, a cheap European one is like we've been talking about, the Leah, the Palmolive cream over there is terrific. Cyril R. Salter is a hard puck that's over there that is just very inexpensive and a great performer. The Palmolive stick and the Latoha stick is really good. But yeah, Sterling, Tabac may be expensive sometimes, but by the time you factor it out to how many shaves it's going to give you, man, it's a terrific soap. It's a cheap, inexpensive soap when you really do the cost on it. And the Perazzo, yeah, especially if you get it at lower prices, like like a TGMX or Home Goods or Marshalls, then man, that can be a very cost-effective way. And that's what I like about this hobby is you can stick with those soaps that you just mentioned there, Michael, and you can get like like that Maggard V3A, the whole Maggard lineup. You can get the Gillette Tech for almost nothing, $9-10 on eBay. And there are pretty good blades that are inexpensive too. And you can have great shaves with these inexpensive products. It's a really cool deal. So to talk about the Maggard stuff, yeah, see what it is that some Chinese company is making those heads, they're Zamac heads, the Maggard V3A, the V3M, and the normal V3, probably the slant as well. All those are coming over from China, probably the same place that Yaki and AliExpress and DS Cosmetics and all those, that's where they're getting those things. And so, and even when you look at a lot of the razors that have been remarketed and rebranded, they're the same heads that Maggard's is selling to you. And because you can look and see the V3 head in so many other razors. And so why pay more? Buy them from Maggard for just a few dollars and they perform really well. Just terrific. The DE89s from Muley and Edwin Jagger, they're the same thing virtually as the Maggard V3 head. So yeah, I am totally on board with that. And I tell you what, if you want some smooth shaving, I love that Maggard V3M. That's the same thing as a Biley. I can't remember if it was a 176 or a 191. It's the same head as that. It's the same thing. And yeah, okay, so it's pot metal. And the threads will eventually wear out with the plating there and they'll corrode and it'll break. But that'll take a long time if you dry off those threads between uses. It'll take years and years for that to happen. And it was such a cheap thing to begin with that when it breaks, just buy a new one. No big deal. And you get great shaves all the while. But like I was saying, for smooth shaves, that V3M for mild, it holds the blade so well and so close to the edge that you'll get really smooth shaves from that one. So I am a big fan of that razor head. So yeah, man, it's been great talking to you guys. I think it's time. Oh man, look at this. I loaded for 40 seconds, which was nuts. And I've got at least three more passes of lather in my bowl here. So I've got tons of lather left. I still am not having any kind of, feeling of dryness or anything. So this soap has done a great job of providing some nourishment to my skin. And I just randomly picked the first splash that was kind of on my table. Declaration Grooming, and it does not have the menthol, so I'm happy about that. And this is the Puzzle, which was I think the one in 2019. Officially, I think the name is just question mark, but most people call it Puzzle. I tried to guess the 4 notes that were in this one, and I got close on 3 of them. Rosemary is in here as a side note, and I totally whiffed on that one, but I mean, that's hard to get. The other 3 I got close on, but I did not get close enough to win anything, that's for sure. But I'm proud that I got a little close. And there we go. So that feels great. Nourishing to the skin, a nice scent. So terrific. I'm glad to join up with you guys. Tito, Michael, very cool to hang out with you for a little bit. If anybody has any final questions, post those as I'm kind of cleaning some gear up. And always remember, if you use a big dense badger, give it a little extra cleaning time. The center of the knot, you got to get that soap out. How much water did I use? 40 seconds of loading, and I used a lot of water relatively speaking. I used, wow, 33 milliliters. Woof. That's over 6 teaspoons of water and I probably actually needed more. Oh, the shell and the handle. Okay. Brush was too dense. Okay. Remove the knot. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times the stiffness is something that plagues me as well. I'm not a fan of those really stiff brushes. If you ever want to re-knot a handle, I have another video about how to do that and how to put washers and plastic washers in the hole so that it raises up your knot. If you have one that's really stiff, but you like the tips and you think if it relaxed just a little bit, then what you can do is yank that knot out or buy it and have an empty handle and put it a little higher in the knot by putting in some washers, gluing those or siliconing those in first, then silicone the knot onto the washers. And because of the extra loft, that'll give it more splay and therefore give it a little bit less backbone and stiffness. But yeah, a lot of the declaration grooming knots that are really expensive, they don't hold very much temptation for me because so often they are quite stiff and a lot of backbone. So this is a good comfy shave. Happy with the closeness where I was able to go against the grain and the ATG was fairly comfy. So pretty cool. And then as always, I sling this out in the sink to get rid of the standing water droplets. And I'm going to take it over to the towel and strop it for a second. During the lather games, I am going to use a different brush every day. And so I won't be able to return back to this lovely fella until one time during the games. And I've got to get my schedule all packed up tight. The first day, the next time I'll be putting out a video, it will be a summer scent or spring scent, either grassy or floral, something like that. And I think I've got a decent one for that. And then I'll be trying to shave outside. So I might be going old school with a basin of water or something like that. I'm going to dry my blade, give it a good rinse. I'm always careful with the edges because I don't want to damage the edges so that it shortens the life of the blade. And as a reminder, this one is the blade that I haven't flipped over yet. Always been using it on one side. And just to show you again the blade, there's my little Sharpie dots there. And then we've got the bend down here. Oh, you can see a little tweak, the little bend in it right there. That's the same Nacet I started back in 2018, which is just crazy. I was hoping it would last a month. I had no idea. I'd never marathoned a blade very long at all. I was just hoping it would last a month. So this charcoal goods razor, I'm going to have to make a note of the ones that are working best with this blade so I can carry on. Okay, I think we're good now. I think we'll sign off. Everything's pretty well cleaned up. Cognac and Cuban cigars from Henri in Victoria. And this is the tallow, the triple milled tallow version that they have. I don't know if they are taking their vegan stuff and running it concurrently with the triple milled tallow, or if they did a full switch over. But even the vegan stuff was pretty good, but it's not as creamy and as slick as this. But sometimes being vegan is important to some people. And so you may want to look and see if they still have that. All right, guys, it's time to put my Sharpie dot. We've got 376 dots indicated. 300 on the actual wrapper. Where did that go? 300 on the wrapper, and then all the extras after 300 to go on this sheet. And we'll see how long we can make it go. A friend of mine went to 426. I'm going to try to see if I can make it to that. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for hanging out. It's been a real pleasure. And of course, if you want to rewatch this video and catch a few details, fast forward through it, see the highlights, that sort of thing, then that'll be available anytime after this. Yeah, one last question. Least favorite DE razor. What is your favorite number one razor? Least favorite, I guess it would have to be a lot of those, the DE89 type razors that don't have very much support on the bottom of the blade. With the charcoal goods every day, you can see that the blade is obviously going to come out to this safety bar, but here's this panel right here, this bevel, and that is contacting the blade. And so this razor, this head design, holds the blade edge close to the edge. And those are my kinds of razors. When a lot of other razors, they don't have, there's like empty space right here. Thank you, Tito, for chiming in, man. It's been enjoyable. And so a lot of the DE89 types and a lot of the other traditional types just have empty space. And so it's relying on the flex of the blade to hold it up there. And so I'll often get a scrapey feeling. And those are the ones that I don't like. Those are my least favorite, or also ones that are just way too aggressive. Obviously, I have a good many of those. Those are my least favorite. And so I don't really have a particular least favorite razor specifically. Like in terms of too aggressive, you've got the open comb timeless. Even the 68 was way too aggressive for me to use. I love the Blackbird, but it was too aggressive for me to use. The charcoal goods, not the everyday, but the normal charcoal goods level one, even the level one was way too aggressive for me. I know a lot of people love it, but it was too much for me. My number one razor, I'd have to say, I like the timeless. I like the Fatipes. But my number one probably is going to be the Carve Christopher Bradley, because it's so flexible. I tried to find it tonight to shave with it. You got a ton of open comb options and closed comb options. And with the Rockwell, I was able to use kind of setting 2 and 3 was what made me happy. But with the Carve, I can use anything from AA all the way up to D, a much larger range, comfortably and enjoyably. And I get close, comfortable shaves. It's a pretty razor. So Carve would probably have to be my favorite number one. So there you go. That's a long answer to your short question. All right, guys. Well, this has been great. It's kind of nice sometimes to have just a few guys here, because then we get to have really direct questions and that sort of thing. So that's an advantage if we don't have too many people joining in. So, all right, I think I'll sign off now. Hey, we got 6 people in now. Somebody joined at the last minute. Hopefully it's not one of my regulars joining in and then missing it all, right? You can still comment on the video on YouTube. If you have any more questions, I don't think the chat on the stream here, I don't think it'll let me see on the stream any more questions. However, I'll see comments left on the video after I shut down the stream. And so I do try to answer those. Sometimes it takes a little while, especially if it's a harder question, but I try to get around to them if at all possible. So, hey, thanks guys so much for all over the world. It's really cool to touch base with you guys. Have a good night. Bye.